Greetings, gentle viewers! Have you ever wanted to see the same kid die over and over and over again? Well, the good news is that now you don't need to watch My Girl on a loop to duet. Building Sites Bite is another one of those magical short films that the British government put out to terrify small children into not accidentally killing themselves. And if some of those small children were scared to death, then all the better. They can't accidentally kill themselves if they're already dead. While others deal with farms. Or water-fixated serial killers.
But no one expects to find me here. It seems too ordinary. But that pool is deep. The boy is showing off. The bank is slippery.
This one's about building sites. It's a clever film. The title has almost as many meanings as the number of times this kid managed to kill himself. Building Sites Bite came out in 1978 and was directed by David Hughes, who did fuck all else. Well, let's hope he said all he wanted to with his cinematic opus. We open with weather that's a perfect metaphor for the 70s, the unpleasantly beige decade, with a faint lingering aroma of mildew. I wouldn't be surprised if she got fined for having a car that bright. Well, that's clever. They're filming a dangerous driving PSA at the same time. Anyway, here's the cast, most notably including Snoopy.
One word. Like Madonna.
I like that the kid and the dog are wearing matching coats. It'll be useful if they want to run off and camouflage themselves in the grimness of it all. This is Snoopy, Auntie and Ronald, dropping in to visit some relatives and other primitive Dutch angles. At the time, sometimes known as Flanders angles. I really can't tell if this is because this has been shot by someone with seemingly literally no experience, or because the physical limitations of the room, but a weird amount of this bit has been filmed from a toddler's eye view. Oh. It's a valid shooting style, but it is a little distracting for the audience.
Oh yes, do sit down and make yourself at home.
The aunt appears to be John Cleese as a pepper pot, as Fiona Shaw as Harry Potter's aunt, as someone who should be starring in a safety PSA about the dangers of head crabs.
And where are the children? They're not playing outside with that frightful rabble, I hope.
Oh, of course not.
Oh no, not there.
Anyway, the kids are brought in from the rabble, rabbling around in exactly the way that a rabble doesn't, to hang out with their cousin, aunt, and other mindless prattling.
Oh no.
You children are so lucky, you know. I remember when I was young, your mother and I used to have an aunt who used to visit us quite often. Well, she had no children, poor soul, had she, Phyllis?
Our auntie was a lesbian. What I love about the nostril cam shots of them drinking tea is how perfectly they slot in with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Observe.
Such fun.
The aunt spending her time talking at Ronald the cousin, boasting about his achievements.
He's so clever. He's been top of his class almost as long as he's been at school.
Yeah, he'd hardly be the top of the class before he joined, dumbass. The film seems to want us to think that Ronald is an arrogant prick who deserves all the shit that's going to come to him.
What are you going to do when you leave school, Ronald?
Oh, he's going to be an architect or a surveyor.
But they never actually let him say anything.
Look at him. Hasn't said a word since he got here. And she calls him a genius.
It's his mum doing all the talking.
He passed all his exams with flying colours. He's frightfully good at games. Well, most games anyway.
It sounds like she's trying to set him up with one of his relatives for the dowry. Or all of them.
What are you going to do when you leave school, Ronald?
Which feeds into my earlier Texas Chainsaw comment so perfectly, it's almost like I planned that. Anyway, when faced with an overbearing, snobby aunt and a quiet, weak-willed son that she's decided is a genius, what's a normal kid to do but start having violent fantasies about him?
Of course!
I'd like to stick him on different parts of a building site and lure him into all the most dangerous places.
I'd like to stick his fucking dog on that building site and have it lead him to his horrible death, time after time, as he impotently tries to save it from the dangers of said building site. And then I'd like to melt his brains, because I'm a normal kid. He starts off small, though, by pretending that Ronald's French.
Rabbit.
But soon moving on to pretending that they're all in the Tomorrow People. And based on some of the stories I've read about the 70s Tomorrow People, that might be the worst thing that happens to any of them today. Anyway, you see, Ronald wants to be an architect or a surveyor, and based on nothing, this dipshit decides that A, he's too stupid to do the job.
Architect? No chance. I reckon he's a twit.
And, kinda weirdly, B, that he's never been anywhere near a building site in real life.
I bet this is the nearest he's ever been to a building site.
Damn. Not even his own house is safe from this kid's wrath.
Ronald? Yes? You've given Jane and me some difficulty arriving at a method of dealing with your know-it-all attitude.
What attitude? His entire fucking personality is that he wears a cravat. He's Fred from Scooby-Doo. Anyway, the cousin has constructed this elaborate fantasy where he and his sister put Ronald into a building site, trying to rescue his dog and watch him die.
I bet Ronald kicks the bucket.
What do you mean?
You see? We're going to put you on a building site. Oh, and by the way, that awful yapping dog Snoopy'd be there somewhere and all.
There's a study that demonstrated that men feel women are dominating in conversation when they're only speaking for 30% of the time, compared to men's 70%. Apparently, with him, that expanded to include Ronald and fucking dogs. Because Snoopy's the only thing that's said even less than Ronald.
You do realise, Ronald, that building sites are extremely dangerous, don't you? Lots of people, even children, get killed in them every year.
Say what you will about the days before the internet, wannabe serial killers had to have imagination. Nowadays, he just bullied him anonymously until he mysteriously threw himself off a bridge.
Alright, Ronald, off you go.
And when they get tired of drawing random shit in their faces, how are they going to take him to the building site? Pretty obvious, really. TARDIS. Time and relative dimensions in shed.
Well, he's taking no notice of the keep out sign. I told you he was stupid.
This is your fantasy where you have all the powers of teleportation, resurrection, and fucking dog control, and you told him to go wander around a building site. When your cousin's a malevolent god, getting yourself killed in a building site is basically self-defense. I might have some experience with this situation. From the other side. And yeah, dog control. The dog's wandering around and getting to physically impossible places, all to lead Ronald into danger. And somehow, this innocent kid is supposed to be the odious little turd in the narrative, when he's just a fire sparker. Twisted fire sparker!
He's got sparks in his eyes.
The first death's pretty simple. The dog somehow ends up in a trench, Ronald goes down to save him, and then a random earthquake happens. You know, the sort of thing that commonly happens in England. Anyway, it mysteriously leaves the dog unharmed, but too incompetent to dig him out.
He didn't do too well there.
No, what's next?
Probably more of the same.
Harold, we only asked you to go. You didn't have to.
You have no will of your own in real life, let alone in this fantasy, and we only kidnapped your dog. You didn't have to go and save it. You know, the most amazing thing about this film is that it put a kid in that outfit, and somehow the other two are the slappable ones.
Don't you know what you should have said when we told you you'd find yourself on a building site?
Oh God. Why me? Wouldn't work anyway, that prick's an unusually cruel god. Anyway, they send him out again.
But please be careful.
Though weirdly, for a film called Building Sites Bite, they don't actually go to a building site.
Ooh, that looks really spooky.
Nah, it looks like shit. Abandoned buildings site bites.
Snoopy!
Snoop's coming.
I'm amazed. He's going in there.
Look at that. The place looks as though it could collapse any minute.
That's a very good point. It's dangerous. Someone should tell the director.
Gosh, that looks really dangerous.
I bet he slips on there. I told you so.
This is like some reactors discovering Urban Explorer YouTube. Anyway, it looks like he's not dying fast enough this time.
God, I thought he was going out with it then.
So did I.
So they better teleport the dog in, right where he can't say that.
There you are. Alright, Snoopy, stay there. I'm coming out to get you.
Don't worry, he won't. This place really rams home why these films were made. They stuck a real-life kid in an actual 3-floor house that was disintegrating and had him acting right next to a multi-floor drop without any obvious safety precautions. Clearly, no one in the 70s fucking understood danger. I wonder how many identical brothers this shit went through. Actually, I'm being unfair. It's the 70s. They probably had the cast of Rainbow coked up just at a shot to break his fall.
What's that wire for?
Electricity, stupid.
With the house in that state, I figured the electricity would be cut. After all, who are they going to charge for it? Alright, him.
It's disgusting. Really.
Yeah, Michael Cera lazing around, making the house look untidy. Maybe we should yell at him some more.
I'll get him back. You said you knew all about building and building sites.
Now, I watched this film recently, and he said fuck all.
Well, I didn't quite say that. My mother did.
Regardless, he apparently knows more than you, because you thought that was a building site.
You have to be extra careful for this. Do you still want to go?
Of course.
Okay, it's your funeral.
The poor bastard has no chance this time. They didn't even give him the option to keep out.
I wonder why he never takes any notice of the signs.
Dunno.
Because you teleported him into the middle of an autobahn for monster trucks?
Blimey, those big lorries are amazing.
They're two things at once. My tiny mind is blown.
Look at that thing bounce. It's amazing.
In case you ever wondered if God can imagine wheels so big that even he can be distracted by them, the answer is apparently yes.
Look at the size of those wheels.
Yes, Jamie, that is a big one.
You might be wondering what the fuck they're building here, but I'm not, because I'm pretty sure it's mud.
But Ronald, you know better.
It's because he's stupid.
Jesus. These two spew out more inane commentary than the average American.
Hey, I happen to resemble that remark.
Well, I don't like to think he is.
But since I'm an extension of your diseased brain, I'm being forced to. You might be wondering how Ronald's avoiding being spotted by dozens of angry workers fucked off because he's non-union. Pretty simple, really. The best form of camouflage there is. Pretend to be a hitchhiker.
He'll ruin his clothes. His mum will go mad.
Based on the colour of those clothes, she won't fucking notice.
Alright, Snoopy, stay there. I'm gonna get
His mum still won't fucking notice. Oh shit, that's brutal. Someone filled that shoe with jam. It's a real eating mess now. And how the fuck didn't he hear that? It's meant to be death, not deaf. It's like the screenwriter has a fucking lisp. Now that is the face of a dog who's been forced to watch his human be murdered over and over and over again. Look at him, he has seen some shit. Maybe this prick just really hates dogs.
Was there anything you wanted to say, Ronald?
No, I'm just a symbol of your hate. Here to make you and your wearable heart monitor jumpsuits and sparkly acne look good. What I love about that costume is the ID badges. There's no writing, there's just a photo, so it's only there in case the kids forget what they look like.
Ronald, this time it's really simple. You just can't go wrong.
He can't?
I'm also unconvinced, little girl. This time, they've teleported him into the exclusion zone. Pity he won't be able to lick the elephant's foot for about a decade.
Fancy drinking that, it's filthy.
And how about one of you try imagining some clean water, you asshole? This death's pretty simple. He loses the dog, again, and there's a subtle allusion to what's coming.
Look at him walking the plank.
Did you catch it? I'll play it again.
Look at him walking the plank.
Still not getting it? Look and listen carefully.
One more time.
Please, not again.
Look at him walking the plank.
Yes, you're right. The house is white, the colour of death in many Asian countries. Well, it's not like he was using those brains anyway. And at least it'd be convenient to bury.
He could have just as easily walked round. You know, try as we will, we can't find a way for you to prove to us that you're safe to let loose around on construction sites.
Dipshit, he never said he wanted to go anywhere near a construction site. He wants to be an architect. You don't design them as you build. It is hardly this imaginary version of your cousin's fault that you thought architects spend their time wandering on building sites chasing dogs. He begs for one last chance to prove that he should be allowed to wander around in search of a dog. Apparently, imaginary Ronald really needs his cousin's approval for some reason.
Give me another chance. Now I've had some experience, I'm sure nothing else could happen.
He's confident that this time it'll be different. This time he'll beat the odds. This time he won't end up as another statistically unlikely death. The problem is, all this is happening in his cousin's brain, and it doesn't give a fuck.
Never tell me the odds.
Look at him now, making those childish noises playing with a cement mixer.
I'm amazed. I thought he was more grown up.
Oh no.
At a certain point, this narration is just me taken verbatim from the book of Job. Okay, we've seen films based on tweets, and we've seen pre-makes, films that seem to be remakes, but weirdly predate the thing that it appears to be remaking. But this is probably the only film that pre-makes a fucking tweet.
He'll play with anything, even a pile of sand.
This film is 90% someone imagining a guy, tricking themselves into believing that guy exists, and then getting mad about it.
I told you he'd play with anything. Only babies play with bricks, Ronald.
Hey, he thinks babies build houses? Maybe he's the one that should be wandering around building sites getting educated, one fatality at a time. This time, Snoopy's found himself on top of a giant pile of bricks. Poor guy looks terrified of heights. He must be shitting on bricks, as opposed to Ronald, who's just bricking shits. Or a better pun if I can think of one. Turns out I couldn't. What I love about this effort to save the dog is that it briefly turns into a Clockwork Orange reference. Anyway, how are they doing in the control room? Stop it, I beg you! He keeps making the same mistakes over and over! Oh, they cut the shot before he started looking at the blood.
Well, you better bring him back.
Why?
After all, you can't blame him.
You can't blame him. This is your fantasy. Exactly. I can be as unfair as I like. Ronald's getting a bit pissed off, and a few hundred more deaths, he might even manage to raise his voice.
You've tricked me. No, we didn't. If you remember, we didn't force you to go.
No, you just told him to after you teleported his dog to a building site, and then you laughed at him when he died trying to save it. Multiple fucking times. I'm sorry for repeating myself. Self. But that's what the film does. Anyway, they send Ronald back to the field again, and, you know, just once I'd love it if one of these ended with him being killed by a cow. Anyway, because he actually got a little angry last time, they've teleported him without the shed to the other side of a river. So even if he decides to be sensible, he has no choice but to take the raft they left him, probably drown himself, and then get blamed for it. Oh, and for the second time, this film is its own spin-off. Disused Quarry's Bite. Anyway, they wait until he's about halfway across before leaving the shed and yelling at him some more.
Well, Ronald, it's really simple. You should have refused to go.
Strange game. The only winning move is not to play.
You should have said, no, I won't go on building sites because they're dangerous.
You have magic powers and you kidnapped his dog. What were you gonna do if he said no?
They're not gonna answer you back. You do know that, right?
We've been trying to tell her that for years.
They might if I yell enough!
If they answer back, we need to get in the car and get over to the 24-hour drive-thru psychiatrist.
You're not gonna put me in a fucking car. It's gonna be a private helicopter or nothing.
I can work with that.
Remember something else, Ronald?
You can't swim, can you?
Anyway, now that Ronald's learned the secret to not dying in building sites, not giving a fuck about his dog, his cousin decides to murder him directly.
You can't swim, can you? Here, Ronald, catch!
You know, Freud would have a field day with this film. All of it, including his sister, is existing inside this guy's head. But she's annoying him by having a crush on Ronald.
He's quite nice, really.
It's like the film is this asshole working through an unwanted crush on his cousin. But where some boys his age would push the object of their affection over or pull their hair, he daydreams about becoming the world's first one-victim serial killer.
Ronald! Ronald! Ronald!
Hi, Ronald. Cheerio, Auntie, Uncle. Thanks very much. Oh, bye, Ronald.
I was having the nicest dream. You were there, and you, and you. You two, I assume I murdered off screen. And that's that. Ronald's off home while his cousin tells us all about the possibly real kids whose deaths inspired the film.
Was run over by a bulldozer, drowned in a water-filled excavation, was electrocuted in a partly built garage, was buried in a trench collapse.
I wonder how many of them were sent in by their magic cousins who kidnapped their dogs. My favourite part is halfway through the list when they run off to play in a building site.
Fell through the floor of a half-demolished house. She was 6. Building sites bite.
CinemaSins reference. Actually, there's no real end credits, just this, which I assume is a cover for the fact that the film spontaneously generated like mold when someone half-assed some construction work on the set of Blake 7. Now, I realise that I'm usually pretty enthused about children dying on screen, but this is really pretty boring. Not terribly well made, and while clever and still pretty unique, the central gimmick is kinda maddening. Ronald really does nothing to deserve any of this crap. The only saving grace is that this will make a fucking amazing mashup with Nightmare.
Walk forward. Stop. Right, can you take like a tiny step to your left? And walk forward. Bit more. Keep going till we stay stop.
You'll need to be faster,
Stop.
team.
Walk forward. Stop. Side step.
Chose the right path, team, but you didn't stay on it.
The central idea is such a random collection of disparate elements that I'm pretty sure they chose them out of a hat, and the poor people assigned to it were just told to make it work. Spoiler, they couldn't, in fact, make it work. I'm Demanda Hagan, and I have to live with that every day.
Stupid deaths, they're funny 'cause they're true. Woo! Stupid deaths, hope next time it's not you.